Look, I think David Stearns is a good baseball mind. I don't think fans are wrong for maybe questioning a little bit. I think they know what they want to be, but I'm not sure they exactly have a true identity yet.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
Well, Mets fans, the offseason continues, and while it's been a little bit lackluster, a little bit quiet lately, hopefully we can get a little bit of insider knowledge here from someone that, Dexter, I'm going to just say it right here, you've done something that I don't think many people can accomplish, and that is be universally loved by the entire Mets fan base.
Wow.
And that is Dexter Henry, sports anchor for New York Post Digital and SNY, and you've heard his voice on the airwaves of WFAN as well.
Thank you so much, man. But, I will give it back and say you're nothing without the people who support you. And so I appreciate every fan, every viewer, commenter. Even I love being able to talk sports. So I appreciate coming on and talk with you, Tony. It's
absolutely. And we're happy to have you. And even though it has been a very odd offseason in ways, a kind of painful one for Mets fans, it leads me to my first question for you. We have seen some of the most beloved and longest tenured Mets walk out the door. And I think in a way, kind of feeling like there's not really an identity for this team right now. And it's caused some panic. So my first question to you, Dex, is what would you say right now is the identity of the New York Mets?
That is a really good question. And so much of the identity comes from the shaping of the roster with the front office, right? I want to say I think there were teams searching for an identity. What I will say from the front office perspective, it appears as though they are looking for a team that is going to be solid defensively, which is something the Mets were not, and could be better at hopefully in 2026 and beyond. I think they want that, but I think also part of the identity, and I know some people are going to take what I'm about to say here as being cheap, but I think they look for value at all costs, which I think good organizations do. So I want to be very clear about that. Is finding value, also finding value on the margins, I think is very important to building a championship team. But as I'm talking myself through this answer, I'm realizing a lot more of the identity is in maybe what is to come. I think they're banking on their farm system. Their identity is more actually in their farm system now than the Major League roster, the more I think about it, because you still need some young guys to hit, and there's still some questions about some young guys. Whether it's Francisco Álvarez, this is a big year for him. If Mark Vientos is still on this team and roster, it's a big year for him. Brett Beatty has to show that he can do it again, right? And I think what the Mets are lacking in their identity is they don't have an ace. And I think some fans might agree that I don't know if I trust the situational hitting yet. You got to see it, because the identity, and in theory, it looks like you could have that. You've lost some power, obviously, with losing Pete. But I would say overall, I think their identity is more tapped into their youth and farm system, and they're still trying to figure out what it is. I think they know what they want to be, but I'm not sure they exactly have a true identity yet.
We've heard a lot of the fan base kind of getting an uproar about Steve Cohen, about how it looks like David Stearns is kind of taking his foot off the pedal. And do you think that Steve Cohen kind of maybe took a step back and maybe decided, hey, just trying to throw big money at all of our problems is not maybe the best way to run a baseball team?
A lot of these owners across sports, I think we should really always look at how they've made their money or how they've made their decisions across the years. And Tony, I think Steve Cohen has always been a guy, you've been reported and other people have wrote about this, that when it came to his dealings in the business world outside of baseball, he knew when to cut his losses. That's something I find actually very admirable, because I don't think a lot of teams sometimes in sports understand when something is a sunk cost. But I think for the most part, he's going to let David Stearns do his thing, which I think is the right thing. I think David Stearns is a good baseball mind. I don't think fans are wrong for maybe questioning a little bit. I understand where people are coming from that, but I think they also have to take a step back and say, well, has David Stearns had the chance to build his team in his image? Not really. Now, he stripped it down to some degree this offseason, right? And is starting to do that. This, if you really look at it, is really year one of him doing that, because 2024, the Mets were ahead of schedule. And I think that also changed some expectations. Do I think the Mets will make another big move? Sure. Do I think David Stearns has things that he wants on his terms in the way he wants to sign people, particularly whether they're in their prime or not? Yes. My concern has been, I've said this on my show, several other shows, is I just wonder how rigid he is to that. Which I think is a fair question, but I think we're going to see that play out either through the rest of this offseason, Tony, or beyond as the Mets go forward. You got to give him time to cook. Maybe you don't like how he's cooking, but you haven't really seen all the ingredients yet.
Obviously, the pitching staff was probably the biggest reason they stumbled in the second half last year. There's really been no additions on that front. Who would be the number one starting pitcher target that you'd like the Mets to pursue?
The Mets need an ace. Now, there's a world in which the Mets could also still, I think, be patient here, and this is not going to make fans happy, and say, you know what, we're going to chill out here. The market for Tariq Skubal is not that great. We're going to wait till either the trade deadline or next offseason to get in on that. I think the Mets would want someone like a Tariq Skubal, and I think that would be a good fit for them. But assuming that he's not here on the board, it wouldn't shock me. I think the Mets know what their price is in terms of, AAV. I think they also probably aren't going to want to go past 3 years. But I think if that's not the case, I think it's actually probably more likely they add an ace next offseason. Again, that's not going to make anybody happy for this offseason. And I do think they need a quality front end of the rotation starter here to not to make the fans just feel good, but to feel good about this team. Because you're right, Tony, pitching let him down in the second half. David Peterson did not pitch well down the stretch. If it wasn't, if you really think about it, for the kids coming up, particularly Nolan McLean, who was able to give them some innings and, also able to make guys miss and put up zeros, it was really shaky. There was nobody you really were trusting out there every fifth day. So you need a guy you can trust out there every fifth day. And I think Framber Valdez, that would be to me a good signing for them if Stearns can get him on the years and the money that he wants.
We have been hearing no less than 100 articles per week about the Mets interested in Cody Bellinger and or Kyle Tucker. Do you believe the Mets are going to add another big bat? Do you think it'll be one of those two guys? And if not, then who do you think would be a good fit for this team?
Man, they need another bat, right? Like,
oh, yeah.
they need another bat, Tony. I would like Bellinger on a short-term deal, just because of age too. I just think Kyle Tucker is going to get a lot more money in years elsewhere. It's almost, I'm not saying he wouldn't be a good fit. I'd love him on the Mets. I think it'd be great for the Mets. I just don't see Stearns going that long for Tucker. I think Bellinger would be more likely. I mean, that's the big thing, Tony. They need to get another bat, and particularly in the outfield is what they need, because if not, you're going into spring training with basically 2 open outfield spots. And if you're excited about Carson Bench in center field, that's cool. And he still has to prove it and earn the job. But who's playing left? that right. Inspires any confidence for you right now. I'm not sure who that person would be. So I think you need to get that situated. Will it be a big bat? I don't know. Listen, I think if the Mets got either of these two guys, it would be amazing. I just think Kyle Tucker's less likely because I think he will get more years elsewhere.
As it stands right here today with this current roster, where would you see the Mets finishing in 2026 in a very competitive National League?
That's a good question. Right now, today, with this roster on January 7th, I think the Mets right now, as the roster is constructed, should compete for the second or third wild card spot. Could they get higher than that? Yes, and depending on how things break. But right now, when I just look at this roster, for them to do that, I'm banking on a lot, is what I'll say. I'm banking on the pitching depth to come through and be healthy, that Nolan McLean shows that he is ace or ace-like, that the Mets even get depth out of another surprise young starter, whether it's a Christian Scott, whether it is Jonah Tong or somebody comes in and emerges. But I think if the Mets are to get back to the playoffs, which I think they will in 2026, I think they will. I'll say that. And I'm not going to say they're going to win a division, because I don't think this is a division-winning team right now as currently constructed. I hope I'm wrong. But I think they could be a wild card team. But I think if it happens, they'll be carried because the young pitching has stepped up in a major, major, major way and given them depth and length in ways they didn't think about. And then possibly to the point where the Mets could maybe either go out and make a move for a starter, or even, dare I say, improve the back end of their bullpen. But I think a lot of things would have to go well. And I also want to mention one other thing that I think has to go well for the Mets to make the playoffs this year and be really good. And that is their pen. And at the back end of the pen with Devin Williams, which scares me. I do not feel confident in the way you did about Edwin Diaz. If things get shaky for Williams in the first month of the season, there's gonna be boos at Citi Field. Tony, you know that well. The Boo Birds will be out. It is not going to be fun, especially because Diaz was so loved here, and performed well here. I don't like saying this, but he's got to get off to a good start. Got to.
You are 100% on the money with that, as you always are. Dex Henry, everybody, a sports anchor for New York Post Digital and SNY. And as I mentioned before, beloved by the entire Mets fan base, speaking the truth here with us. Dex, thanks so much for joining us today.
Man, Tony, thank you for having me. This was fun. I will come back again to talk Mets baseball, and I got to have you on Straight Out Flushing. We got to make that happen pretty soon. We'll make it happen.
Absolutely. Anytime.